Hi everyone, this is Emmanuel from Airtrain AI. Today I want to talk about the impact of what happened at OpenAI a few weeks back on the dynamic between closed and open source AI models. As you know, on the Friday before Thanksgiving, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was fired by his board. After a lot of chaos and confusion, he was finally reinstated a few days later. To this day, though, we still don't know exactly what happened and why the board voted him out in the first place, and we may never know. So even though Sam Altman is back at the helm, I believe those few days of chaos had a big impact on the dynamic between closed and open source AI models. So let's dive in. First off, what do we mean by closed and open source AI models? Typically, when we talk about closed source, we refer to what OpenAI and Anthropic are doing. They publish models, they charge for access, but they do not disclose the details of the models. We don't know what data the models were trained on, we don't know the details of the techniques that were used to make the models better, etc. We know they used RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback, to fine-tune models for better alignment with human preference, but that's about as much as we know. Open source is more of a spectrum. The baseline is for the actual model weights to be open so that you can download them and run the model by yourself. Then, depending on models, the training code, the training dataset, and the intermediate checkpoints can be available or not. Also, a model's license is what eventually dictates how it can be used, and therefore its degree of openness. For example, Llama 2 has a special license that you use it in a commercial product, but only up to a certain amount of users. On the other hand, Mistral 7B is licensed under the Apache 2.0 license, which grants free and unlimited commercial use. So why do people select open source or closed source models? Well, to start with, closed source models are usually the best on the market. GPT-4 is still undefeated as the best performing model on almost every task. Closed source models are hosted by their providers, like OpenAI or Anthropic, so they're extremely easy to use. Just enter your credit card, get an API key, and start making queries. The closed source models are nicely packaged, high-performing products, and they get upgrades frequently. What about open source models? Well, first, they offer a lot more transparency. You can learn how they were trained, on what dataset, with what architecture, and so on. Secondly, they offer a lot more control. You can host OSS models yourself in your infrastructure. You can control what hardware they use, what resources they have access to, and so on. Thirdly, open source model can be more secure. Because OSS models can run inside a company's VPC, no user data or anything confidential has to leave that VPC. Nobody knows for sure what OpenAI does with all of its user questions. Finally, OSS models may be cheaper. This one is actually hard to know for sure. When you host your own model, you don't pay per inference time or per token like you do with OpenAI. However, you have to pay for the hardware that hosts the model, as well as for the engineers that maintain the infrastructure on which the model is running. So I think the jury is still out on whether OSS models are cheaper. So how does what happened at OpenAI shake up the dynamic between closed and open source AI models? First, it showed some failure of leadership. It showed that on a whim, without justification, the CEO can be fired and the whole company is up in arms. That does not inspire a lot of trust and confidence in the stability of the company. Secondly, OpenAI's API is not very reliable. In the last 3 months, there has been at least 5 outages that lasted over 2 hours, as you can see here on their status page. If your business relies on this API being up, you are losing money and users every time it is down. Arguably, these incidents are unrelated to the recent leadership crisis, but it's still something to consider. Finally, there is uncertainty in the product direction. On the one hand, OpenAI announced their GPT store, which looks like a shift towards consumer products. On the other hand, OpenAI's original mission is to advance research towards AGI, artificial general intelligence. The recent chaos definitely shows a rift between its commercial aspirations and its original research mission. As an engineering leader, you have a choice between an out-of-the-box, high-quality but expensive, unreliable product, or a self-hosted product that is more transparent and controllable but requires more work to be as good. Ideally, you should not have to choose. On a case-by-case basis, you can assess the trade-off and make an informed decision. What's clear, though, is that closed models are a great way to prototype and get a project off the ground quickly. No need to deploy any infrastructure, just start building the product. Then over time, as you're moving towards production and you need to optimize cost, performance, and reliability, you may want to shift towards open models running on-premise. Before we wrap up, I want to take a step back and talk about what Yann LeCun said recently. He was speaking on a panel talking about why AI needs to be open source. Let's take a listen.
This would be a common platform, sort of like the internet today. It has to be open. It cannot be proprietary. It's way too dangerous for this to be proprietary. You know, that's your next movie. That's really the scary stuff. If you have a small number of West Coast companies controlling super intelligent AI systems, they can control everybody's opinion, culture, everything. Maybe the US government will go along with this. That's called regulatory capture. But I tell you, no other government in the world will find this acceptable. They don't want American culture to dominate theirs. They will have to build their own LLMs. So the only way to make this work is if you have basically open source, basic structure. This is one reason why Meta open source Llama 2.
According to Yann LeCun, and I agree with him, it is absolutely necessary to keep AI open so that the general public can have control and visibility into what goes into these models. This is a necessary step to avoid a corporate or national takeover of artificial intelligence. I hope I was able to convince you that although closed models are very powerful and easy to use, it is crucial to pay attention and support open source models as they are the key to more economical, more transparent, and more reliable AI system. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks. Bye-bye.